Welcome to another S&P 500 analysis. Today is May 8, 2021. Is the market getting into a euphoric state? Look at this chart here on the screen here. It certainly is getting to be a little bit of a climatic. In this video, we're going to take a look at the sentiment, the market internal, and also some of the price action of the S&P 500 and other major market indexes to see what the market is telling us. In addition, we're going to take a look at the recent strength in the market, which is the transportation. And in addition to that, we're also going to take a look at some of the futures on these major market indexes to get a gauge of where the price might be headed. So stay tuned. Looking at this weekly S&P 500 chart, you can see that after a breather from last week, the market continued to climb, and it is still retaining this upward trend. As you can see from the pandemic low back in March of 2020, it's essentially coming up at a more of a 60-degree angle line here, and that is a pretty steep climb. So right now, it doesn't seem like there's any end in sight, but we know the end will come eventually. Right, as you can see, the range for last week kind of expanded, and it was 109 points. And also the price is still above this weekly, this 10-week and the 40-week moving average. Also, these two moving averages are climbing at a steep slope. So once again, the market continue to push up. And I wouldn't say it's a grinding process. It seems like we are getting into a accelerated process. We could possibly see a blowout of this market soon. So let's go and take a look at the sentiment and the internal and see what they are saying. Before we go and take a look at the sentiment and the internal, let's take a look at this longer term chart here on the VIX. You can see that it is still sitting underneath this 20 level. Been sitting here for the last couple months now, although last week we saw a day that actually peaked up above that 20 level, but quickly retreated back underneath it. And here the VIX, as you saw earlier, is sitting at 16.69 as of Friday close, and the put call ratio is still sitting at 0.6. It still underneath this 0.75. Definitely the market participants are coming back risk on. With the S&P 500 close up 30 point, almost 31 point at 0.71% last Friday, and put in a new all-time high and closed with a new all-time closing high. The up-down volume ratio was quite strong in the recent standard because it's sitting at 3.79. And recently we were saying that it's been kind of chopping around between plus and minus 2, the ratio. So right now it seems to be expanded a little bit more on the upside. So we're getting a little bit more up volume activities. And also the daily advanced decline also expanded on Friday. It's sitting at 1,786, more advancing issue than declining issue. So that is also showing a little bit of a regathering of internal strength here in terms of market participation. And the other thing that we were talking about recently about the lack of expansion of the new 52-week high over the 52-week low. And unfortunately, on Friday, we did see a little bit of expansion, and we haven't seen this above 500 for quite a while. And it actually finished Friday with 529 more new 52-week high than 52-week low. So that is quite a strong showing there on the New York Stock Exchange in terms of the new high, new low. And the cumulative AD line in the New York Stock Exchange, recently we were talking about the flatness of this line, even though the S&P 500 was pushing up to new high territory. We're finally seeing a little bit of acceleration of this line here. As you can see, the slope on this climb is a little bit more steeper now. And as the S&P 500 also steepen up the climb toward the new high territory. Recently, we've been seeing the Nasdaq market is sort of lagging, especially because of the bank stock. So we see that the Nasdaq 100 is actually lagging the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial in the last few weeks or so. And you can see right now it's trying to creep back up on a little bit of a bounce off of this level here, somewhere around 13,400 area. But right now, the Nasdaq still lagging in performance comparing to the other major market indexes, because the tech stock, it seems to still a little bit out of favor right now. We did see on Friday the up-down volume expanded to a positive 2.65 compared to recent negative showing on the up-down volume ratio, with more down volume than up volume. And the advanced decline, the daily advanced decline, also expanded with 1,513 more advancing issue than declining issue on Friday. Now on Friday, the Nasdaq 100 did close with a gain of 105 point or 0.78%, although it did not close at its high. It closed pretty much where it opened, and it is still a little bit of a distance away from the all-time high. The Nasdaq new high, new low did climb up a little bit. It was 211 more new 52-week high than 52-week low on Friday. So that is a little bit more respectable showing, but still very lackluster. And look at the cumulative AD line from the Nasdaq market. It is still showing this negative divergence here. So we'll see, will it be able to come back up and take out some of these recent pivot high, while the Nasdaq 100 is recuperating and try to come back up to test its recent all-time closing high. So from the sentiment, we are seeing the market participant or back with on, and also the internals from the New York Stock Exchange. We see it is regathering strength to push the index to the new high territory. But the Nasdaq, although it is recovering a little bit, showing a little bit of strength, but it's still lagging the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial in terms of performance. Now let's go and take a look at the price action of the S&P 500 and the other major market indexes. Before we go take a look at the price action of the individual indexes and the S&P 500, I just want to show you this multiple index chart. So you can see on Friday, the New York Stock Exchange Composite closed with a new all-time closing high. So did the Dow Jones Transportation, the Dow Jones Industrial, and the S&P 500. Now notice the Nasdaq 100, the tech-heavy index, the last time it closed with a new closing high was back in April 16. And the Nasdaq Composite, strangely enough, actually closed with a new closing high on April 26 without the Nasdaq 100 participation. So you can see that this time around that the Nasdaq Composite closed with a new closing high was not due to the tech-heavy stock, the large cap tech stock or the FANG stock that helped push this index to a new closing high. Then the Russell 2000, the last time it closed with a new closing high was back in March 15, back on March 15. Okay, so you can see that there is a disparity between the indexes right now, between the small cap, the tech-heavy stock, and here are the more of the large cap blue chip that been pushing the market higher. Now let's take a look at the daily price action of the S&P 500. Remember during the midweek video that I put out was one of the expectation was for the S&P 500 to continue to pull back into the price channel and possibly come down and test this 4114 area. So you can see that it sort of pulled back a little bit, but did not stay inside of this channel and immediately bounced back up. And then it surges during the last hour or so. And again on Friday, also gap up and made another surge toward the close. And on Friday, it put in a new all-time high and closed with a new closing high. So right now, it has exceeded this 141 extension, this 4221 area. And next target area that I'll be watching will be the 4275. This 1618 extension is essentially the major move of this bull flag. that I use to project some of these potential target level. So we'll see, will it continue to push next week? If it does, then that would be the target that I'd be watching for, is the 42.75. If it does decide to pull back and shake a little bit, then once again, I'd be looking for a pullback inside of this price channel. And the first level to keep an eye on would be this 41.84. Then dip back into the channel, then it'd be 41.14. And for the Nasdaq 100, the expectation was for it to pull back, complete the this gap fill here, and possibly come down and test this 13,280. As you can see, it did not do that. Instead, it bounces back up, and on Friday it gapped up, but did not show much of a strength of holding on to the gain other than the opening gain, because it closed pretty much where it opened, near this 13,713 level here, and it closed at 13,719.63. So in the coming week, we'll keep an eye on it to see what it continue to push up. If it does, then I'll be looking at this 127 extension. If it could get above this 14,000 area, then maybe it could put the all-time high back in play. But if it decide to pull back, then once again, I'd be looking for this gap fill and come back down to this 13,280 area. And if it continue to work lower, then I'd be looking at these possible gap fill down here, and eventually get back down and test this 12,786. For the Russell 2000, I was looking for this 2195 area to get retested. You see that it came down, got close to it, but no cigar, and then bounced right back. And then on Friday, it put in a pretty solid green candle here. And right now, if it continue to move up next week, once again, we'll be looking at the 2296, 2297 here, and possibly work itself back up to the upper price channel trend line, and that would essentially retest the all-time high. If it decide to pull back, once again, we'd be looking at this 2195 area, and down here at the 2075, the lower price channel trend line here at the 2050 area. Here on the Dow Jones Transportation, you can see that it has surpassed our expectation of that 15,700, and right now broken out of this price channel and getting into this 16,000 level. So we'll see what it continue to push, and we're going to take a look at some of the transportation stock and see will they continue to push this index higher. But if it decided to pull back into this channel, then once again, we're basically looking at this 14,969 as the first level of potential support. But right now, it's appear that the transportation is still got more strength to push higher. So we'll see. We're going to take a look at some of those stocks as soon as after we finish with the index here. And here's the Dow Jones Industrial. You see that Dow Jones Industrial put in a new all-time high and closed with a new closing high. So once again, we got the confirmed Dow theory high. So in other words, we're going to see a continuation of a newer high from the Dow Jones Industrial in the near future, most likely. So we'll see would that occur or not, but certainly with the Dow theory in play, there is that possibility. So if this thing continue to push, we basically are looking at this 127, 35,480. Yeah, it might sound a little bit strange right now, but it's just incredible how this market is continue to defy logic here. And right now, if it decides to pull back, we might see it come down and retest this upper channel trend line here at 34,178. But it looks like it might want to go higher here. Let's take a look at the Emini future for the S&P 500, the Nasdaq 100, and the Russell 2000. The reason why I like to use the future is because it has the volume profile that I could see where the cluster of price, the acceptance and the rejection, to kind of get a little bit more objective view of where the potential support and resistance zones are. So let's start off with the Emini S&P 500. Here I got the daily chart here, and this is the composite volume profile. And looking at this price action here, you can see that recently it's been chopping around within this high volume area here, right? And then finally broke through on last Friday. And right now, basically looking for a continuation move. It could stay out of this high volume area, because once the price have broken out a consolidation area, we see it will likely to continue to move in the direction of the breakout. So in this case, it's in the upward direction. So we could see the possibility of coming up to this 42.72 on the S&P 500 cash index. We were talking about this bull flag here, and basically a dude that did the same thing here to do a major move. And this right here, the next level is 1618 extension, and that could be somewhere around this 42.72. So that would be the upside level that I'd be keeping an eye on if this E-mini S&P 500 continue to push up. But if it does decide to pull back in, then once again, we basically are looking for this thing to come and chop around back down to the other end of this balance area, which would be somewhere around 4,113 level. Then we see that it could come down and break out of this balance area and come down to possibly retest this 4,052.25. And that could also be in confluence with this lower channel trend line here when it gets down to this 4,052 area. And here's the NQ, the E-mini Nasdaq 100 future. You can see that there was a little bit of a low volume zone here that it came down and checked it the last week and kind of bounces off of it. So let's take a closer look of this in terms of the price action and the volume profile. So you can see that it bounced it off this low volume zone here, a little bit of a low volume zone, and it is seems to be consolidating here right now at this high volume area. So if the NQ decide to push up and break above this 14,064 next week into the new high territory, then we could see it potentially targeting the 14,459. Right, but if it retreated back and break below this balance area, then I'll be looking for this thing to come back down into this low volume zone, and that could also come back down and test this particular trend line. We might see a little bit of a bounce here, somewhere around 13,336 or 13,337 area. So be watching for the support level somewhere around 13,508. If it break below that, then I'd be watching for 13,336 area and possibly come all the way back down to this 13,165. And if it could come up to the 14,064, then look for a push through and possibly go target 14,459. And here's the E-mini Russell 2000 futures. As you can see, I also have a little bit of a major move from this swing from the February 2020 to the pandemic low of in March, and project this up to a 100% extension here. And you can see that the upper target could be 2,419. So let's take a closer look at the price action of the E-mini Russell 2000 future. See that right now it's sort of been chopping around in this area here, this high volume area, right? This high volume area. So right now we'll see, would it be able to come up and break above this 2,312.80. If it could move up to this level, then basically targeting the 2419 area, this 200%. In other words, it's 1x time of that big swing from the February to March 2020. And if it come back down to this 2057 area, then we're basically looking at this little bit of a low volume zone and see would it be able to get a bounce off of this trend line in which that it would be in confluence with, and see what it bounce back up to this balance, the upper end of the balance area. So that's the look of the E-mini future for the indexes. And certainly it gives a little bit of different perspective because of the volume profile. It shows us where some of the price acceptance and some of the price rejection area. Recently, the Dow Jones Transportation been strong and continue to push into new record high territory. And there doesn't seem to be any letting up in the near future. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look at some of the stock that make up the transportation sector and see what are they doing. And the first up is the FedEx. As you can see, Federal Express been chopping around in this high volume area here and finally broke through. And right now it seems to be pushing higher. Let's go and do this little bit of a major move on this this range here from this consolidation area, and just do a 1x projection, and that's put it in a possibility of a potential target of $355.67 area. So that would be a potential target to keep an eye on if the transportation continue to push, and FedEx would most likely to continue to benefit from this transportation push in terms of the reopening of the economy. The other one is the UPS. You can see UPS broke out of this consolidation area quite earlier than FedEx, and you can see this big gap up from this earning report, and it just continued to push higher. And right now it is getting to be a little bit of a euphoric, so I wouldn't be surprised that we could see a little bit of a retracement back and possibly fill in these gap. So we'll see how long these transportation stock could keep up. It's definitely getting acting a little bit more like the earlier days of the large cap tech stocks or those speculative EV stocks. And looking at the railroad here, Norfolk Southern, and you can see that it's been trending up along this trend line since the pandemic low back in March 2020. And right now it seems like it just continue to trend, and if it pulls back, then we see there's a little bit of a low volume area which is also in confluence with this trend line here. So wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a pullback to this trend line and test for support here. But until it breaks this trend line, I think NSC will continue to move up. And here's Union Pacific. Union Pacific is acting similarly to NSC, and right now it's basically pushing up to a new high. And again, recently it just broke out of this consolidation area, this balance area here. So if it continue to push higher, we expect to see this thing possibly get up to this 240 area. And if it does decide to pull back, then we probably see it come back down and check this trend line, which is also in confluence with the lower boundary of this high volume area. And here's CSX, and again been trending up against these trend line. Basically got two trend lines. It all depends where you want to draw it and how you want to connect some of the point. But the point here is that it is trending up, and recently it has been consolidating in this high volume area, and it's looked like it's trying to break out. So if it does break out of this consolidation area, this high volume area, then possibly look for a move to the these round number 110 area. Or we could also use my favorite tool here, the Fibonacci retracement, and just do a 1x projection here, so that would get up to that 107 area, 106.68 on a 1x move. And then here's Kansas City Southern, another railroad company, and here you see, right, again, it's been consolidating in this high volume area, so look for a break, and if it does break through, then again we use the Fibonacci retracement tool and do a little bit of a 1x, and we can see somewhere around 317.83. And if it does break down from this high volume area, then you see there is a large gap here. So that could be easily sucked back in to this level here beneath the 270 area. Now looking at some of the trucking company, here's a rider system. And you can see that it also been trending upward. And right now getting a little bit steep and getting into a little bit of a frothy area right now. So wouldn't be surprised to see this come back in and possibly check this trend line here somewhere around this 79 and somewhere around this $79-80 area here. And Expediter also is getting a little bit of euphoric. You see that this could be a climatic move here, just shot up on Friday up at this 118 area. So wouldn't be surprised to see it maybe pull back a little bit and check this zone here, this high volume zone that it just recently broken out of. So could come back and maybe do a little bit check at that 112 level. JB Hunt, another trucking and logistic company. So you can see that it also broke out of this balance area. And right now it seems like we encounter a little bit of resistance here. And we'll see would it be able to just chop around here and build up more acceptance and then make another push. But if it decides to come back in, then we're basically looking for another test of this lower area, and that possibly could come back and test this trend line here near the 165 area. And Landstar System, so it's another trucking and logistic company here. You can see that it is trying to break out of this high here. Wouldn't be surprised to see that that move and break out and make a new all-time high in the near future. But there is also another steep trend line here, and if it decides to pull back, we could see some sort of chopping zone here, right? This high volume area. So we could see it, maybe consolidating in this area if it decides to pull back. So we'll see. This is also would be in confluence with this trend line here if it does pull back to this lower end of the balance area. Let's go and quickly take a look at some of the airline, right? And take a look at the United Airline. We can see that the airline's been recovering, and right now it seems to be pulling back. So for United Airlines for the coming week, I'd be looking to see would it be able to break above this trend line here. Right, so there is a price zone here somewhere around 55.28. So if it could come up and break this trend line, then that could be another move back toward this high here. Get into this level here somewhere around 62.56, and essentially get into this low area. Low volume area, and if we could get into this low volume area, it could get sucked right up to this 74.38. But if it pulls back and chop around in this zone here, right, this little bit support area, and we could see it essentially come down and retest for support on this trend line, and that might be another area to keep an eye on for looking for a bounce trade, back up. So either you look for a breakout trade up here, or wait for a little bit of a pullback back to this $50 area, and then look for possible bounce off support type of a trade entry. And here in Delta Airline, you can see Delta Airline been acting pretty nicely, within this channel here. Right now, it seems like be doing a little bit of a bounce off of this lower trend line on the price channel. So that might not be a bad trade location to look for some sort of a bounce off support trade to see would it come back up into this low volume area here. So that would be somewhere around the $50 level. And American Airlines also been bouncing off of this little bit ascending trend line and try to break out of this pullback trend line here. So if it could get above this area here, somewhere around these 22, then look for this thing maybe possibly move back up to this 26 area, get into this low volume area. right? If it could get above this low volume area, then look for this high volume zone to get a little bit of a chop. So look for, if it come back down, look for a little bit of a possibility of a bounce off of a support trade here, or look for a breakout of this trend line and look for a retest of some sort and get in on this breakout trade. And Alaska Airline, again, similarly to the other three airlines we just looked at. So we're looking for this thing to see would it pull back to this trend line or break out of this this trend line. So this right here would be a little bit of a breakout trade and pull back and look for a bounce off support type of a trade. Here on Southwest Airline, it's a little bit above this supporting trend line, and it's been kind of consolidating in this high volume area. If it could move up above this trend line, then possibly trade up to this 64 area at this upper edge of the balance area. Or if it dipped down, then I'd be looking at these high volume zone here to possibly get retested, right? And then eventually come down and test the this trend line. So for Southwest, I would kind of hold off or look for a possibility of breaking above this this little bit of a pullback trend line and play it back up to the not all-time high, and playing back to the recent high. So but I would look for a better candidate. Although, yeah, it's still got some upside potential, but right now, I believe I'd be more interested in the other airline than Southwest. And same thing with JetBlue. JetBlue is also, been kind of chopping in this area here. So I wouldn't be surprised for JetBlue to chop back down to this $18 level and possibly get down to this trend line here. So that's where I would be looking for some sort of a long trade location to play the bounce off the support. Even though if it break this trend line, then I see the possibility of encountering some resistance up at this 21.5 area for JetBlue. Okay, so those are the transportation stock that help the Dow Jones Transportation to get into new record high territory continuously for the last pretty much last month or so, right? So in summary, after looking at all these price action, the internal and the sentiment, we definitely see still some internal strength there in terms of the industrial, the transportation. So wouldn't be surprised to see the market continue to push higher in the month of May and see a top, possibly a top, during the month of May. And right now, certainly the price momentum seems to be favoring on the upside. But for the tech sector, we have to keep a close eye to see would it be able to come back up and rejoin the other major market indexes, reconnect with the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial. Similarly with the Russell 2000. So those two sectors, the small cap and the tech sector, is a little bit lagging. But right now, looking at the New York Stock Exchange, the internal is still has not deteriorated yet, and looking at those transportation stock, although it is getting a little bit of a euphoric, but it appears that unless we have reached the peak of this economic cycle of moving goods and material around, I would say that there are still more upsides to come. So we'll see how this market will play out in the next week or so. Certainly, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a shake and bake, kind of shake some of the weekend out from the recent gain. So just be careful if you don't feel comfortable with the, continuation of this upside move and you believe this is getting a little bit out of hand, just move to the sideline instead of trying to, pick the top right now. So thank you for watching. be sure to smash that thumbs up to help me promote this video and share this video on YouTube. Stay safe.